CNN is scum.
CNN is scum.
Yeah, and MSNBC is scum.
MSDNC is scum.
I'm sorry, my mistake. MSDNC and the New York Times.
The New York Times is scum.
So saith President Donald Trump at the NATO meeting overseas in Europe after this report came out. It's a horrible report. Somebody leaked a report supposedly from the Pentagon saying that the ultimate devastation at the nuclear sites in Iran was not total obliteration, as Donald Trump has said repeatedly. It was a minimal strike that would allow Iran to recoup their nuclear efforts and be back up and running again in a couple of months, which Donald Trump says is ridiculous.
This was an unbelievable hit by genius pilots and genius people in the military, and they're not being given credit for it because we have scum that's in this group, and not all of you are. You have some great reporters, but you have scum. CNN is scum. MSDNC is scum. The New York Times is scum. They're bad people. They're sick. And what they've done is they're trying to make this unbelievable victory into something less. Now, even they admit that it was hit very hard, okay? But it wasn't hit hard. It was hit brutally, and it knocked it out. The original word that I use, I guess it got us in trouble because it's a strong word. It was obliteration.
Obliteration, total and annihilation of the Iranian nuclear program by President Donald Trump. And now CNN and MSDNC and the New York Times and other outlets are trying to discount Donald Trump's military operation, which he's not happy about because it was a total success. And he also says, as you can point out there, that it is disgraceful and demeaning to the brave pilots who risked their lives flying into enemy territory with massive amounts of munitions in the bellies of their airplanes and dropping them all over Iran. Luckily, Donald Trump wasn't at the NATO summit alone. He brought some of his top lieutenants, including Pete Hegseth, who described once again to CNN, scum, and MSDNC and all the scumbags there, exactly what happened and how it was, what President Donald Trump.
How many people that are going to be down there? Pete, do you have something to say about that?
Well, Mr. President, when you talk to the people who built the bombs, understand what those bombs can do, and deliver those bombs, they landed precisely where they were supposed to. So it was a flawless mission.
But if this is, of course, the deep state acting the way the deep state does, this is somebody in the Pentagon, which, by the way, this is a problem too. Somebody in the Pentagon taking a top secret assessment, an early assessment, and leaking it to the media then feeling totally obligated to report it, totally no problem whatsoever, publishing top secret data, which is interesting because do you remember when they accused President Donald Trump of hoarding top secret data at Mar-a-Lago? Do you remember when they accused Donald Trump of stealing top secret documents and keeping them in a bathroom at his home in Florida? Now CNN has no problem taking top secret documents or what they believe to be top secret reports and plastering them all over the internet and spreading them all over the world. Nobody was angrier, I don't think, than Secretary of State / National Security Advisor Marco Rubio. It is illegal. It is deep state operatives. It is something that is misinformation. And anybody who believes CNN or MSDNC or the New York Times should remember all of the lies that these people have told repeatedly about the Hunter Biden laptop being Russian disinformation, when really it was Hunter Biden's laptop, about Joe Biden having the cognitive ability to carry on the presidency of the United States of America when he couldn't even sign his name. So they had to use the auto pen to sign executive orders and perhaps even some pardons. They told you that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election hands down in 2016, and the poll numbers had her running away with it. They told you that Donald Trump colluded with Russia in 2016 to win the election. They told you that Donald Trump hired prostitutes in Russia to do horrible things on a bed that he once believed that Barack Obama slept in. They told you that Jussie Smollett was a victim of a hate crime in Chicago outside of a Subway restaurant at 2 a.m. They told you that Joe Rogan took horse dewormer, and they even changed the color of his face. These are not good people. These are, as President Donald Trump so eloquently put it, scum.
CNN is scum.
Yeah. And back here at home, Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the Middle East, was on with Laura Ingraham on Fox News. And he said, look, this is probably treasonous.
Well, it goes without saying that leaking that type of information, whatever the information, whatever side it comes out on, is outrageous. It's treasonous. So it ought to be investigated, and whoever did it, whoever's responsible for it, should be held accountable. It could hurt lives in the future. There's leaking is a completely unacceptable thing. But let me give you, because I've read all the damage assessment reports from not just our government, but from other governments. And I'm not going to get into anything that's top secret, but let me tell you for sure what happened here. There are three distinct facilities in Iran that we were concerned with. Isfahan, which is a conversion facility. You cannot weaponize unless you have what's called the conversion process at the beginning of enrichment, and then a conversion process to metallicize the material at the end of enrichment. That conversion facility, which as far as we know is the only facility in Iran that can do this, was completely destroyed at Isfahan. It's above ground. It was hit with a 30,000-pound bunker buster, and it could not survive that hit. So they have no conversion opportunity, and that means they cannot weaponize, even if they've enriched to 90%.
And that is something that Marco Rubio reiterated as well. There's no way they can complete the process. The enrichment of uranium cannot be finished without the conversion facility. There's centrifuge. It's a multifaceted project to build a nuclear weapon, the kind that Iran has wanted to build for so long. But he said the most interesting thing is that the proof is in Iran's response. If Iran was only a few months behind, if Iran still had the capability to enrich uranium and build nuclear warheads, if Iran was not totally devastated and obliterated, they never would have come to the table for a ceasefire agreement with Israel.
Iran, throughout, since this conflict began, we've been talking to them about having some sort of peaceful settlement. And Iran's one caveat has always been that Israel had to stop its campaign. And once Israel fulfilled its objective, which they did, and once the United States fulfilled its objective, which it did, the total destruction of the enrichment capacity of the Iranian state, then the president was able to go to both parties and get a ceasefire done. And by the way, the proof is in the pudding. No one's shooting at each other. It's over.
It's totally over, and the only reason it's over is because President Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio and Raisin Cain and the American military did exactly what they said they were going to do: obliterate Iran's nuclear capabilities. That's why Iran gave in. That's why Iran came to the table and said, please stop shooting at us. And that's why there is peace in the Middle East between Israel and Iran for the first time in decades. And that is something that is something that is going to be on. Now, they're done with that. And even the Secretary General of the UN, who has to keep kind of an even keel and an even demeanor and be what like the ultimate politician, was praising President Donald Trump for what he's been able to accomplish over the past few weeks in Iran and in Israel.
Let me first, before I go to the spending, I just want to recognize your decisive action on Iran.
Thank you.
You're a man of strength, but you're also a man of peace. And the fact that you are now also successful in getting this ceasefire done between Israel and Iran, I really want to commend you for that.
Yeah, there you go. Strength and peace. Peace through strength. That's all Donald Trump has ever wanted to be known as. That's all Donald Trump has ever wanted to be remembered for. And the NATO alliance is also changing thanks to President Donald Trump. They're starting to pay their fair share. Isn't that amazing? All of a sudden, the UN countries, all 32 of them, are coming to the table and they're voting on new measures, a new, bylaws or whatever you call it, that 5% of their GDP, each country will pay an even share of their GDP toward protecting the countries in the UN. And the reason for that is because the majority of the countries in the UN are in Europe. President Donald Trump has said in NATO, not the UN, in the NATO alliance. The reason why all of these countries in the NATO alliance, the reason why Donald Trump is not hell-bent on fitting the bill for most of them is that most of them are in Europe and they face the threat directly from Russia specifically. And when the money is given to them by the United States of America, most of what the money goes to is for fortifying roads and airports and other places where the military might need to have their heavy equipment rolling around, all that kind of stuff. So Donald Trump is like, why are we paying for your roads to be fortified? Why are we paying for your airports to be strengthened and enriched? Why don't you guys pay for that? And that is exactly why Donald Trump went to NATO. That is exactly the plan on the table. And that's exactly what's happening.
For too long, one ally, the United States, carried too much of the burden of that commitment.
And that changes today. President Trump, dear Donald, you made this change possible. Your leadership on this has already produced $1 trillion in extra spending from European allies since 2016. And the decisions today will produce trillions more for our common defense to make us stronger and fairer by equalizing spending between America and America's allies.
Giorgia Meloni, not very happy with that. Giorgia Meloni, not very happy apparently with that that particular comment. But hey, look, you know what? Everybody's got to pay their fair share. That's what Barack Obama always told us. At least. Speaking of which, speaking of paying your fair share, speaking of making some money, speaking of the United States fitting the bill for all these things, there's a lot of movement on the one big beautiful bill as well here back home, which moves again inching closer every single day to a vote in the Senate, so that Donald Trump can meet his objective of having this thing passed by the July 4th holiday, which is a week from Friday. And Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, has been down here back at home in Capitol Hill at the Capitol building, meeting with senators, trying to get this thing pushed through. And he feels confident that this vote will come in just a few days.
I had a very successful lunch meeting with the senators. I think that we are on track for hopefully for a vote this Friday for July 4th for the tax bill. President is doing peace deals, tax deals, trade deals, so he's done a peace deal. I think we'd have the tax deal done by July 4th, and then we can finish with the trade deals.
Yeah, and that's what we're looking at now. It's a great bill. It's got to move forward, and Scott Bessent is going to do everything he can to move it forward ASAP.
How are you convincing conservative members that this is not going to have a negative impact on the deficit?
I think it's through growth, and we are constraining spending and bringing that down, so the trajectory of the deficit to GDP will change.
And that is exactly that's exactly one of the things that President Donald Trump has said. We've got to we've got to change the trajectory here at home. We've got to make sure that we're not just a country that taxes its citizens and spends the money. And if we need more money, we tax our citizens even more. We need to be a country that is earning income outside of income tax. And that's one of the reasons why President Donald Trump is issuing orders to Energy Secretary Chris Wright to drill, baby, drill. That's why President Donald Trump is selling gold cards to people who would like an advanced luxury path to citizenship for $5 million. That's why Donald Trump is bringing in all kinds of manufacturing and all kinds of AI technology companies from Taiwan and from Qatar and from Saudi Arabia and from the United Arab Emirates and from all over the world. That's why he is hell-bent on building America back into a manufacturing center. And that's why the tariffs are such an important tool in Donald Trump's economic tool chest, so that he can continue to raise money here in the United States of America. So the one big beautiful bill will not explode the economy. It will actually do what he says it will do. And that is make America great again, while actually bringing down the deficit by at least $2 trillion. If not more. Listen, there is so much more to cover coming out of NATO. There's so much more to cover with President Donald Trump and these leaks coming from all over. There was a big election a mayoral election in New York, which we need to discuss. But that, of course, is not part of the 47 Daily. That is part of our second daily podcast. Mark Kaye saves the Republic. We go live every single day at 1 p.m. Eastern time on Facebook and Rumble and YouTube, wherever you can live stream us, you can watch live. Or if you prefer a podcast, no problem. Just go to whatever your favorite podcast platform is, search Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, download, listen, and enjoy.